All right, let's dive in. We're talking about one of the most recognizable names in American history, John Hancock. But we're going way beyond the autograph today. We're going to get to know the fascinating, really complex man who risked absolutely everything to put his name on the line for a new nation. You've probably heard this one, right? It's the line everybody knows. The story goes that Hancock, as president of the Continental Congress, signed the Declaration of Independence with this huge, defiant flourish so the king couldn't possibly miss it. It's a fantastic story of rebellion for sure, but as we're about to see, it's almost certainly a myth that popped up years later. Still, think about that. That single act was so powerful, so iconic, that his name literally became part of the American language. When someone asks for your John Hancock, they're tapping into a legacy that started with one incredibly bold stroke of a pen. And that is the real question, isn't it? That's what we're really digging into. Let's forget the myth for a second. Who was John Hancock before he was a signature? What could possibly drive a man with incredible wealth and privilege to commit treason against the British crown? Okay, so to understand the revolutionary, you first have to meet the aristocrat. Because long before he was a traitor to the king, John Hancock was basically Boston royalty, one of the richest men in all of the American colonies. I mean, his path was practically paved with gold. After his father passed away, Hancock was adopted by his super successful merchant uncle. He gets a Harvard education, and then in 1764, he inherits the entire family business. Just like that, boom. He's a central figure in Boston's elite with a massive fortune that gave him immense power and influence. And he definitely liked to enjoy that wealth. Hancock was famous for his taste in luxury, expensive clothes, the whole nine yards. This made him a pretty unlikely partner for guys like Samuel Adams, who was much older and lived a much more, puritanical lifestyle. They were a total political odd couple, but their alliance, well, it would end up changing the course of history. So while Hancock's wealth gave him a lot of status, his huge shipping business also put him on a direct collision course with the British crown and all its taxes. And one ship, just one ship in particular, would be the spark that ignited the fire. So, here's what happened. In 1768, Hancock's ship, the Liberty, sails into Boston Harbor. Now, customs officials were already super suspicious of Hancock because of his politics. They believed he smuggled most of his wine ashore in the middle of the night to avoid paying the duties. So a month later, they seize his ship, and Boston just exploded. A riot broke out, and the whole Liberty affair became this massive rallying cry against British authority. And this right here gets to the heart of the historical debate. What was really going on? Was Hancock just a smuggler trying to get one over on the taxman? Or was he the victim of corrupt British officials who were just using the law to shake down a political opponent? The Crown charged him with smuggling, but to Hancock's supporters, it was just pure harassment. So in the end, the charges were just dropped. No explanation given. But honestly, it didn't even matter. The damage was done. Whether he was actually a smuggler or not, the Liberty affair had transformed John Hancock into a symbol of American resistance. He was now a hero to the patriot cause. After the whole Liberty affair, Hancock's rise was just meteoric. He went from being a well-known Boston merchant to the political leader of a full-blown revolution. First, he becomes president of the revolutionary government in Massachusetts. He and Samuel Adams were considered such big threats that the British actually sent troops to arrest them, the mission that was famously stopped by Paul Revere's Ride. Right after that, he was unanimously elected president of the Second Continental Congress, and get this, he used his own money to help fund the war effort. Okay, so this brings us back to his most famous moment. But here's a little fact that often gets lost in the story. That big, iconic signing ceremony. It didn't happen on the day we celebrate with fireworks. Yeah, the actual timeline is way different than the myth. On July 4th, Congress just approved the text. That beautiful official copy on parchment that we all picture, that wasn't even ready yet. The famous signing event, the one where Hancock put his name down first with that big flourish, that actually took place nearly a month later, on August 2nd. Now, here's something that is absolutely crucial to understand: the immense risk he took. When the first copies of the Declaration were printed and sent out, only one name appeared on them: John Hancock's. For 6 entire months, he was the only public face of an act of treason. He was a man with a singular target on his back. But Hancock's story doesn't end with that signature. Not at all. After the war, he had a huge political career.
But his legacy, well, it remains a topic of some pretty fierce debate.
He was incredibly popular with the people. He served as the very first governor of Massachusetts and won re-election 9 times. He played a key role in calming things down after Shays' Rebellion and used his considerable clout to help get the U.S. Constitution ratified in his state, which was a huge moment for the new nation. So, despite all that popularity, his place among the other founding fathers has been pretty contested by historians. And a lot of that is shaped by what his political rivals had to say about him.
One really critical take from historian James Truslow Adams paints Hancock as this shallow, vain guy. Basically, an empty barrel. A rich dude who wasn't a real leader, but was just a figurehead used by the much more politically savvy Samuel Adams.
But then you have other historians like Charles Akers who have a totally different view. They argue that Hancock is basically the victim of a historical smear campaign, that our view of him has been unfairly colored by the writings of his enemies and his political opponents for centuries.
So in the end, what are we left with? It's a really complex picture, isn't it? Was he a principled patriot who risked his entire fortune for liberty? A savvy smuggler who just kind of stumbled into a revolution? Or a vain politician who just craved the spotlight? You know, maybe he was all three. But the one thing that is absolutely certain is that John Hancock was far, far more than just a signature.